On the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private, so there may be a short delay, just to let you all know. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Attendees are required to wear masks on entry to the building and meeting room, but may remove them when seated. Would members and officers please remember to switch their microphone on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone and switch off when they finish speaking. Okay, can't emphasise that enough because otherwise sometimes up here we can't hear what you're saying. Any officers that are called upon by the portfolio holder should address the executive using the microphones marked presenting officer at the rear of the council chamber. Switch off mobile phones or put on silent mode. Can I ask everybody to do that, please? Now we'll move on to the agenda proper. Apologies for absence. Have we any, Matt?
None, Chair.
None tonight. Can I sign the published record of the meeting of the 18th of May and the 1st of June, please? Yes, thank you very much. Remind members of section 106, are there any items 106 tonight?
None, Chair.
None, thank you. And remind members of disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? Andy?
Thank you, Hazel. I'll disclose an interest in items 15 and 16 because it relates to our airport company and I'm a director of that.
Would you have, does Andy need to leave the room?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Item 3. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, I so apologise. There's 2 others, isn't there, as well?
No,
Yeah. Okay, fine. All 3 will need to leave the room then. Thank you. I move on to item 3, business not covered by the current forward plan. There isn't any. Item 4, business not covered by the current forward plan, but is special urgency. And we do have an item under that, item 4, which refers to, I know is an item for Abbas. However, we have had a reference from Scrutiny. The Overview and Scrutiny Board have put a reference in, so I'm suggesting we take that and do the 2 together, okay? So that we deal with the issue all at once. So I'm moving over to the reference from Overview and Scrutiny Board. David, are you taking? Are you going to move this?
Which one are we talking about then?
Item 2 of item 5. I know it's complicated, but we've got the actual report is under item 4, but the reference comes up under item 5. But it seems sensible to take them both together.
This item, is this not the item that relates to
I thought it was to do with
the airport?
Oh, so sorry. I've got the wrong item. That's a good start to the meeting, isn't it? Okay, so ignore me then and move over to Abbas to move his report.
No, I wouldn't ever do that, Hazel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, is reference from the Scrutiny Overview and Scrutiny Board Town Centre Public Space Protection Order renewal. The Town Centre Public Spaces Protection Order has been in operation in the Town Centre since July 2018 and it covers a range of behaviours. The executive report is to allow the extension of the current PSPO for a further 3 years and change the boundary to include an area of land in Manor Road. The consultation exercise was undertaken by the public key partners, which started 22nd of February and ended 22nd of March 2021. In relation to the proposals, the results of this are contained within Appendix A of this report. Public consultations has highlighted that the public feeling unsafe in the town centre to the point that they refer to cease visiting the location is due to anti-social behaviour enhance the development of the Public Space Protection Order at this location. Public Space Protection Orders PSPO allows local authorities and the police to prohibit or restrict certain behaviours within an area to tackle antisocial behaviour and help people feel safer. In terms to the Town Centre PSPO, an extension is required to continue to prohibit behaviours. However, this does not work in isolation and is an important part of the integrated approach to tackling antisocial behaviour. The paper sets out the terms and requirements that must be met to extend the PSPO, which included the public consultation. I move that we approve the report to authorise the extension of the PSPO for the town centre for a further 3 years. In addition, that we note the extension of the designated area to include the area of land in Manor Road. Furthermore, that the executive discusses with the police, NOAA and other agencies how the order can be made more effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Abbas. Before I open it up to questions, I just want to clarify that I'm not going daft, am I? 5.2 refers to this item that Abbas has just moved from scrutiny. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. David, did you want to speak on it?
Very briefly, Hazel, thank you. Yes, you're not the only one that's confused, because I am too. And but part of that reason may be that I haven't brought with me the papers that that go with the scrutiny reference. But I don't need the papers. I remember it well. The scrutiny board is very keen to encourage you to extend the order. No problem about that at all. They're quite happy for Manor Road to be included, and in fact many of us couldn't really understand why it was excluded in the first place. So that's a move to be recommended. The big issue as far as the scrutiny board was concerned is that it really isn't effective. It is not doing what it's intended to do. I guess a lot of that is to do with the resources that are available to make it happen. And it's not, yes, it's about enforcement, but it's not all about enforcement. There are lots of other arms that can be used, which is why the board recommended that you talk to the police and NOAA and other agencies that the council works with all the time in order to try and find a way to make it more effective. It is important. We want the town centre to prosper and thrive. It won't unless we can make this order actually work. And we're simply encouraging you to find a way to make it more effective than it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to come back on the reference from scrutiny?
Yes, Hazel. Completely endorse the words of Councillor Franks and the Scrutiny Board. We are already in talks with the police, NOAA and other agencies, and as Councillor Franks does mention, it is a bigger part to other than the enforcement side as well to it. So all of us have to be on board on the same page to eradicate this. Yes,
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Aslam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, just building on what I'm just trying to. Yeah, it's there now. It's working. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, just building on to what Franks and Abbas have said. Look, the purpose of this whole approach, integrated approach, was for those people who need help, whether it may be from public health or who may be homeless, you know, where we can sort of provide that effective support and get them off the street. But, you know, those ones which needed help have now, you know, got the support and are off the streets. But the hardcore people still remain. And I was just walking down George Street. I saw at least 20 people drinking on the benches, and that's starting from the top all the way down to here. And there was one chap who was trying to play piano. He was effectively being mugged by the others. So it's bad as that. I think that the police are not using those extended powers, and we need to hold them to account. Initially, it was that partnership. They were supposed to work with us, and if a problem is escalated, they were supposed to intervene. I don't think that they're playing their part. And I think that somehow we need to start sort of getting them to do their job, to be honest. And that's where I would rest it.
Thank you, Councillor Aslam. I agree with you fully there, and we are starting those negotiations with the police. I have a meeting with Gary Forsyth next week. We will be lasing these messages onto him as well. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. I believe everyone out there at the moment in this town centre claiming to be homeless there is a place for any people that want it in this town at the moment. I fully support what you're saying in the recommendation, 100%, but what I think you need to do is take it a little bit wider than just Noah. Because Noah is only one small part of what's called Luton Homeless Partnership. And on there you've got people from the work with mental health, you've got drug and alcohol people, you've got everyone that goes out together. What we've got now are people that are professional in the town centre. They have got properties to go to, they've got flats to go to, or bed sitters. During the pandemic, we managed to get everybody into accommodation. But some of the accommodation, we had to put 24-hour security on to get them out, to make sure they behaved themselves. I think Aslam and David Frank said it right. What you've got now is an hardcore out there. An hardcore what's got all sorts of addiction problems. So without the help of East London, the Drug and Alcohol Partnership, all those kind of people, and the Homeless Partnership, who at the moment aren't housing a lot of these people, the Homeless Partnership houses them. That's where the answer is. I honestly believe we've got to get them out of the town centre, but it's when they're out of the town centre and Manor Road, where do we push them to? Without that partnership working across the town, all we're doing is moving the problem. So the most important element of everything we've got, and I'm not being soft-hearted on the people with a drug and alcohol problem in the town centre, what I'm saying is, it's a waste of time just pushing them to another part of the town, which happened last time. We came down heavy on the town centre, and then we had problems with people begging up at Tesco's up Cllr Road, because we were pushed out of the town centre. So this time, the partnership, not just Noah, all the homeless partnership, needs to be on board. So when we are moving them out, we know where they're going to. If they've got temporary accommodation on Cllr Road, we know they're going to get some begging around Cllr Road. So we need to be prepared for it from day one, so we can deal with it. What you've got down here is the first big step of tidying up the town, and I welcome it. But what we can't do is tidy up the town at the expense of some of the other parts of the town. So we need to get part of the plan needs to be with the homeless partnership to work out how we're going to manage it in other parts of the town as well. Otherwise, I welcome the report. Very good, but not just Noah. It's got to be the whole of the homeless partnership.
Thank you, Tom. Points noted there.
Yeah, again, coming from a different angle a little bit, but I totally agree with everything that's been said tonight and agree with what Tom said. Again, the only thing that's missing for me a little bit, and maybe this is the softer side, is that these people, just based on what's been said, are still quite vulnerable. They are still vulnerable people, and I still think we need to take that into consideration, but agreeing with everything that's been said tonight. Thank you.
We have an item 5.1, which is a private item, and I would suggest we take it with the private report later on in the agenda. Okay. Now move on to items 6, no recommendations from scrutiny reviews, no petitions, but we do have some items now on the full agenda, and it's item 8, the lift closing report, and that's my item. In February 2017, the Council approved a budget of about 2.9 million to assist with the delivery and momentum of the Luton Investment Framework. Over the last 4 years, the funding has enabled us to deliver many high-profile programmes and projects which have contributed hugely to the town and our residents. Many now form part of our mainstream services. This report provides executive with more detail on a number of projects delivered under the LIF, including a number of successful events which also attracted external sponsorship. The Mobile Aspirations Centre, the 16 by 16 programme, the successful bids to both CITB and JCP at the start of the Passport to Employment Adults programme. There is approximately 230,000 not allocated in the LIF reserve. It is proposed that this remaining budget is set up as a Luton 2040 Special Projects Fund. This would support the delivery of some critical Luton 2040 projects, with climate change proposed as the immediate priority to be brought forward. Members are asked to note the formal closure of the LIF and to approve a new Luton 2040 Special Projects Fund, with the first project being climate change and moving this forward. And I ask members to agree that. Are there any comments from anybody? David.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I think paragraph 23 refers to the culture and heritage sector. We currently have a heritage enabler who is doing some sterling work with other groups around the town, including the Luton Heritage Forum. I just wonder whether there is any provision for extending the, it's a temporary post, I believe, whether there's any attempt to extend it or make it permanent, or where do we go when the temporary post comes to an end?
I'm afraid I know the individual you're referring to, but I don't know the detail of the reasons that maybe that might not be possible. Can I come back to you? Do you know the answer to that, Robin? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, just to respond to Councillor Franks, absolutely, we are working on a plan to ensure that we have that post for a longer period of time, and are currently working with partners on a number of bids to achieve that.
Okay. Anybody? Did I say?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment in terms of closure of LIFT program, and wanted to thank all the members and officers for doing a sterling job with the LIFT program that we had. It put Luton onto the map. It brought in a lot of inward investment. It's a shame that pandemic hit the momentum, and I'm very sure with the 2040 vision we'll get back on track. So I fully support the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Are we happy to support the recommendation? Thank you very much, everybody. We now move on to effective support strategy, and that's Tahmina.
Thank you, Chair. So Luton Children's Services has undergone a large-scale organisational change assessment in which the Services for Early Help, Manor Contact Centre and the Flying Start Children's Centres were merged.
Okay.
Apologies, I'll begin again. So Luton Children's Services has undergone a large-scale organisational change assessment in which the Services for Early Help, Manor Contact Centre and Flying Start Children's Centres were merged into a newly established service called the Family Partnership Service. This proposal, Chair, was agreed at Executive on the 9th of February 2021. The newly established effective support strategy is being created following this OCA and will provide guidance to our workforce and partners on our thresholds of intervention. The fundamental duties related to the legislative framework do not change. This strategy sets out how we make decisions together when considering what will be the most effective support to provide to children and families, when considering the needs of the child and what support parents and their carers will require to meet those needs. Within the Ofsted Improvement Plan, there is a recommendation for a clearer threshold document to be put in place for Luton to fully understand the levels of need and the appropriate intervention. This strategy shifts our practice approach to identifying what would be the most effective support for families and children rather than the measurement of need against a threshold of service provision. The Family Partnership Service will build on the previous Luton Early Help provision to deliver an early, effective to deliver early effective support, but clearly recognise when children are in need of protection, stepping them up into statutory services. Equally, when families have been successful and lower the risk to their children, they are able to step down to maintain the appropriate level of support and intervention. We will work with partners and the third sector to ensure families are able to access a range of support services. I'd like to make the following recommendations, Chair. That we agree and support the effective support strategy as an updated practice threshold document for Luton Children's Services, and that we agree that statutory partners through the Corporate Director of Children, Families and Education can make any necessary required adjustments as part of the learning from the implementation plan. Thank you.
On the report. Are we all happy to agree? Thank you very much. I now move on to item 10, and that's the provisional revenue and capital outturn. Andy.
Thank you, Hazel. So this is, as you said, the provisional outturn. So this is the end of the financial year. I believe it was only last executive meeting that I presented the period 11 report and talked to that quite extensively. So I'm not going to talk quite as much length tonight. There's been a huge amount going on in the budget this year. We have had the pandemic, which has reshaped all of our lives entirely, but the budget has been significantly impacted by that, with the need to undertake an emergency budget, which we did just about a year ago, this time last year, but also significant amounts of grant funding coming in and out, and losses of income, losses of airport dividend, and any expectation of that for future years. So there's been a huge amount going on. The thing that I really wanted to talk to, because overall the general fund position is balanced, the thing that I really wanted to talk to is, since the period 11 forecast, there have been a few areas where there have been larger than I would have expected changes in terms of the final reporting. It's still provisional, but the final reporting compared to the period 11. So there's been some changes in waste management, in the customer services department, and in BTS around the final budget line costs. And actually, when that was reported to me, I asked for a report to be written. It wasn't possible to do that within the timescales for this meeting, given all of the very thorough and detailed other work that has gone into fully considering the matters before us later tonight in the private part of the meeting. But that will come in due course, and it will be reported to Finance Review Group in due course, because I wouldn't expect quite such significant shifts between period 11 and final close of accounts to usually happen. So it was around £500,000 in waste management, £500,000 in customer services, and £0.7 million in BTS. The changes from period 11 to the provisional outturn. So I've asked for a report to be written on what actually happened there. Why did we miss that, or why was the period 11 so different to the provisional outturn? And that will be considered by Finance Review Group. We might well bring it here as well, in terms of, is there anything we can learn there? It might be a function of it being a very unique year, but I think it is right and proper to undertake an analysis of what has gone on there. Why was it different at period 11 to the end of the financial year, and to really consider whether there's anything we can learn from that in terms of sharpening up our processes. So that was the key thing I really wanted to talk to, because I've talked to this budget position very recently, and it's not changed much apart from a few areas where there have been some shifts that I wanted to highlight to other members of the executive. I will take any questions if there are any, though.
Any questions from anybody? No, we'll be happy to approve the report. Thank you very much. Now move on to Town Centre Master Plan, and over to Sian.
Thanks, Hazel. First thing I need to tell you about is an amendment. So it says on my laptop that we're on page 181, but I don't know if that's the same in the paper documents. It's slightly different. But you'll see that the recommendation is for this report to go to full council. Well, we've now been informed, and I won't read out the act that it falls under, but the monitoring officers looked at this, and actually it is a decision for executive only, and therefore this report does not need to go to full council. We will be making the decision here this evening. So therefore that recommendation on the report should read that the master plan be approved here tonight, should members approve it. So to talk to you a bit about what the development plan is about, master plan is about, it is a vision, not a quick fix. It is a long-term vision that looks at how we can change our town centre over the next 20 to 30 years. There are lots of previous iterations of how we would work on the town centre. Under our old local plan, we had a town centre development framework, and since then our main planning policy has been the local plan, which some members, won't say older members, but members who've been here a little bit longer will remember much of it. But town centres themselves have gone through so much change everywhere across the country. Town centres are hugely changed. The way people shop has changed, the way people use town centres has changed. In fact, the way we live has totally changed, and there are some huge changes in Luton Town Centre that we see reflected in other town centres as well. And so it really is the perfect time to set a vision that will set the scene for the next 30 years and make sure that the direction is correct. The document's strongly aligned with our 2040 plan. All of the ideas in Luton 2040 are about building an inclusive economy, and that's exactly what building a stronger, more effective town centre for all of our residents will help to achieve. It's not just happened overnight. We've been working on this since 2019. We've been out to consultation, 2 public consultations already, which had about 1,700 responses. We've also got significant stakeholder support, and you can read in the report the types of groups and that we've spoken to. Some of the main aims around this are not just about meeting the needs of our residents, which obviously that's the most important, but also to make the town centre more attractive, cleaner and greener. And we heard a little bit about this earlier when we talked about the PSPO, but also we need to do things that will address the climate emergency. We're a town that wants to celebrate local talent and empower entrepreneurs in our town centre as well. We want to deliver genuine job opportunities in the town centre because we've got to make our town more sustainable. The document outlines some main moves that I've talked about meeting the needs, making it more diversified, connected, clean and green. But more importantly, there are 5 physical moves that I think it's important to bring your attention to tonight. Firstly, upcycle what already exists. And what that means in practice is about preserving our heritage. And again, this was mentioned earlier when we talked about the Heritage Enabler post. But it's about using old buildings and making them fit for use in today's world. And we know that that's quite different. The plan talks about restitching the centre. What does that mean? It actually means making it more accessible. It means that people can get into town, they can get out of town, they can go to the places they need to without barriers in the way. And whether that's by foot, cycle or bus, less reliance perhaps on the car. It's about knitting. We talk a lot about stitches and knitting here, and I'm not really sure what our officers were talking about. Whether they were obviously doing their crafting while they were writing this report, but knitting the town centre back into the town, and that's really important as well, because at the moment, where is the town centre? What is the high street? Is it the Mall? Is it George Street? You know, there's a thing there that we really need to act on to make the town centre have a real centre that can be linked into surrounding communities. Because we do hear a lot of people who say to us, we don't come into the town centre, it's difficult for me to get there, or for lots of other different reasons. We need to introduce a greater range of activities, and most importantly, we want to open up the River Lee, and that's something we've been talking about for quite a while. As I mentioned, it's a 20 to 30 year plan, so the plan in the report talks about a phasing strategy, how these developments will work over time. But also, which is quite important, we're aiming to set the tone and expectation for any future development. So anything that's coming up in the future, we we will have clear ideas about what that will look like and how it will work, because we're trying to make a town centre that improves the quality of life for everybody. The framework will help us be in a better position for bidding for funding. And again, in today's world, bidding for funding for major projects like this is absolutely key. I think, from my point of view, this is probably the most positive thing that we can do coming out of the pandemic. Everybody needs something to look forward to, and the town centre needs a lot of help, needs a lot of work, but we've got a plan here that people can really look towards, see a vision and think, yes, this is going to help me, it's going to give me better places to shop, better places to socialise, better jobs and more accessible. So it's a huge opportunity for us, and it's a huge opportunity to be really bold. We don't have to be scared here, we can be as bold as we need to be. There are some new developments that we know will kickstart this plan, and I hope that people will see it as a huge positive for Luton. The town centre is vital for all of us, and I hope that you'll be able to support the recommendation. Thanks very much.
Are there any questions? Aslam?
Yeah, no, fully agree and support what Sian has said. We were one of the first to have an indoor shopping centre. Since then, you know, it's been outdated. We need to bring it to 21st century. We have worked tirelessly to develop a vision, and it is a long-term plan. But all I would say is that some of those, so the first phase of that work, we need to bring to the forefront and ensure that they are delivered, and the ones that we've identified that are achievable, because we don't want to run it down to that level where it will take that much longer to kickstart the economy again. We, like you said, to kickstart the economy, getting jobs and getting stores and creating those opportunities within town centre are vitally important. We showed how bold we are with the airport, and we know, you know, how much town centre is important to us and our residents. So really fully support that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, David.
This is a procedural issue, Hazel, to be honest. I mean, we fully support the master plan. It's the huge amount of work's gone into it. It's got some really quite positive ideas. No issue with it at all. But at the Scrutiny Board, we were told that the only reason it needs to go to full council for endorsement is because that would convert it from a plan that the council has approved into a weapon that the development control team will be able to use to make sure that future developments comply with it. So clearly, I'm a bit worried now that it's not going to develop to full council, because we, the Liberal Democrat group, don't want the hand of the development control team to be weakened in any way if they want to use this master plan as a means of pushing future developers into complying with it. So what I'm asking is, please let it go to full council. There's no danger at all that full council is going to reject it or muck about with it, because your group will support it, the Liberal Democrat group will support it. We're just anxious to make sure that it has the maximum muscle power for future use.
Sian, can you deal
Yeah,
with
well, thanks, David. I'll read. I wasn't going to read this bit out because it's a bit local government speak, but I'll read it anyway and see if this answers your question. So, the monitoring officer has noted that the town centre master plan is not a development plan document that falls under section 15 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2015, and so is not a plan or strategy falling within the definition of the policy framework, as described in Schedule 3 of the Functions and Responsibilities Regulations 2000, that requires endorsement by full council following approval by executive. It is a decision for executive to make. Now, that doesn't answer the specifics around development control, but I don't know if you know more about these schedules and things than I do, and whether that makes any sense to you. If not, we could probably bring in one of our officers to answer David's point.
If I could just respond. Now I don't know more about these technical development regulations than Sian does. But the point I'm making is I can't see that you have anything to lose by allowing it to be endorsed by full council, even though it may not technically, legally be necessary. If there is even a slight chance that it makes it more useful in influencing future development, then I can't see what you've got to lose.
Hazel, if it helps, I'm quite happy for it to go to full council, but it's very clearly a decision made here. So if it's full council, it would be a discussion item or presentation item only.
I'm quite happy because we have to make the decision today, but I'm quite comfortable with it going to full council myself, because it's going to be a town-wide strategy. To be endorsed, yeah. I have no problem with that. Yeah. So is our members comfortable with that? Yeah. Okay, so that's what will happen then, okay? To be endorsed. Of course you can get up and support it, yeah. If you're going to not support it, David, you can't put your hand up. Yeah? Okay, so are there any other questions from anybody? Any comments? No? We're happy to approve, bearing in mind what we've just agreed. Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to item 12, domestic abuse strategy.
Thank
Javed.
you, Chair. I would like this executive support to sign off the Luton Domestic Abuse Strategy for 2021-24 by the Domestic Abuse Local Partnership. Following a year-long consultation led by Joy Piper, Strategic Manager, Domestic Abuse Children's Services, Central Bedfordshire Council, and in response to the additional duties being introduced by the Domestic Abuse Act 2021, we have developed an effective strategy and associated action plan to help address the needs of victims, perpetrators, and their children affected by domestic abuse. The current position is domestic abuse has a devastating impact on victims, their families, friends, and wider community. It is an issue which threatens the physical and mental well-being of those it affects, damaging relationships with others and limiting the ability of individuals and families to live safe, happy, productive, fulfilling lives. Our vision is for Luton to be a place where children, young people and adults can live free of fear, violence and abuse. Working with all our partners and our communities to ensure the vision becomes a reality, we will work to improve our response, benefit from innovation and learn from our other experience to continue to improve outcomes for victims and perpetrators and help reduce the incidence of abuse. With this in mind, our strategy is built around 4 strategic priorities: prevention and early help, partnership, provision, improvement and protection.
Are there any questions on the report? Comments? No? Happy to agree. Thank you very much. Can I now ask our colleagues to possibly leave the room, please? And can I ask the exec to approve the regulation 4 of the